podcast that tells the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And if you're a business owner and parent, I salute you, as they're two of the hardest things you can do, and you are doing both together. I'm your host, Jamie Reeves, aka Dr. Biz, and on today's episode, I've managed to persuade a gentleman who has had a massive impact on my life to come on the show. If you went onto Google to describe what a genuine G is, it should read Terry Gormley. Terry Gormley is known as the Mindshaper, and if you spent any time around the Entrepreneurs Circle or Doncaster Rovers, even if you haven't directly been under his influence, a whole bunch of people who you admire will have. Terry is a human behaviour specialist, performance coach, and extremely sought after motivational speaker. And what makes this even more extraordinary is that Terry comes from very humble South Yorkshire beginnings, starting his life as a miner before joining the RAF as a firefighter. So, without telling the whole of his story in our opening gambit, will you please welcome to Tales of a Parentrepreneur, the big G himself, Mr. Terry Gormley!
Wow, what an introduction, mate. I feel quite humbled, but what a wonderful introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me on and allowing me to share some of my story with people, the hope that we can help at least one more person.
Absolutely. Well, you're very welcome. So I'm going to just go straight in. How has your knowledge to help you get more out of your staff and got your kids to do more of the things that they want? Because with you being a human behaviour specialist, surely that puts you in an advantage to where other people might be.
How has my knowledge, Jamie, what was it again?
Helped get more out of your staff and more out of your kids to get them to do more of what they should be doing.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the greatest things that I ever did in my life was learn about human behaviour and the science of personal achievement. I'm in my 21st year of it now. And when you understand how people operate, I always say, Jamie, there's an outside world and an inside world. Yeah. And if you want to be a great leader, even if you're in a team of one, if you just want to lead your family, you have to understand what's going on inside them. They always say, don't they, that ships never sink because of water around them. They always sink because there's water in them. And if you don't understand what's going on in your kids' life and you don't understand how they're thinking and what their behavioural patterns are, you can't really help them get to the next level. And most people, most parents and most leaders of small businesses, I think, focus more on themselves than they do on what's happening in their family. And I think they're missing a real big trick, if I'm honest.
So how did you come to learn about human behaviour then? What drove you to kind of start getting passionate about that subject and learning more about that subject?
Well, Jamie, when I was growing up, when I was in junior school, I always liked hanging around with older kids than me. And I didn't really think much of it at the time. I just thought that they understood me a little bit better, and I always found that I thought a little bit differently. And I went through school, and I didn't have I left school with no qualifications. I used to play snooker when I was meant to be, in school doing lessons. And then, funnily enough, I would go back into school in the afternoon for PE. And I went through life like that. And growing up in a coal mining village in South Yorkshire, there was no real drive to do anything apart from go to the coal mine. So I didn't see any benefit of going through school and education. And that was great then. But as I started going through, I spent 6 years as a coal miner working underground, and that was just not a nice living. And so then I went as a firefighter, and then in the Air Force. Then I went local authority firefighting and Ministry of Defence. So I was working with fast jets, and I was working in Norfolk Fire Service. And like most firefighters, on your day off, you want to try and do something and make a little bit extra money. Well, I had no skill. I wasn't a painter and decorator. I didn't do roofing. I wasn't a bricklayer. I couldn't really do anything. So I ended up setting up a fire safety business. And what I found is that growing up in a mining village, the way in which I communicated wasn't amazing. I'll just say that. When I was going out into businesses and speaking to businesses, I just didn't seem to be on the same wavelength as them. And it's 21 years ago now, 2003, that I went on an 8-day training course what I thought was about learning to communicate, and that completely transformed my life, and I began to understand myself, my behaviours, my patterns, and then I began to this journey now, which is of lifelong learning and being a student of human behaviour, in particular the science of personal achievement. What is it that one person does? So if you've got two people who have set up their own little business, because very often I think there are these levels. You start in education, then you go to employment, and then you go to self-employment, and that's a huge leap. There's only sort of 1% of the population ever do that. And then if you bring staff, then you become a manager. And then once you get more and more staff and you grow and develop, then you have to become a leader. And these different steps of the way, it's really difficult. And I think then you go to entrepreneur, then this is what I believe personally, then investor. Because investors just put their money into places that they know are going to work, and I think that's the highest level. But the big step for people is going from that employment to self-employment. And yeah, for me it was I did this course, I got so much from it. I did another sort of 12-day course, then I did another 7-day course, then I did a 21-day course. I became fascinated with how I can improve myself. And even now, I'm 58 years old now, even now, every week I still read books, I still listen to podcasts. You know, I'm fascinated with anybody that has done something different. So if you've got two people,
yeah,
solopreneurs, let's call them, parentpreneurs, one will do much better than the other very often. And I'm really interested in what is it that they do different in the inside world that makes their results transform and change.
So what do you think it is that those successful people do then, that they do differently from one solopreneur to another solopreneur, that then helps them climb that scale that you were talking about?
Yeah, I think there's it's such a deep subject is this, Jamie, but I think a passion for learning is one. In our space, where we've been friends for well over a decade now, in our space, if you go to a small business owner like what we are, in fact, I'll do it right now if I can. If you look, what you'll see is similar books like these on everybody's shelves, and if you're in an office there or in your house, you'll have similar things. So I think you've got to have a passion for learning. Mm-hmm. You've got to be really, really determined. So when I first started in business, I went to Business Link because I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know anybody that ran a business in a little village called Maltby in South Yorkshire. Yeah. In fact, I didn't know anybody that knew anybody that ran a business. And so it was like, well, where do you go? So I went to Business Link, and I remember this guy standing up and saying, it's going to be really tough. You think it's all great, but it's going to be really tough. And if you're not prepared for a fight, if you're not prepared to never ever quit, no matter what's happening to you, if life's happening not to you, it's happening for you. So if you look at life where everything's a challenge, no matter what happens, how do you solve it? And I think the job of an entrepreneur or a parentpreneur is to solve problems and challenges. And if you've got that kind of fight in you, then you're going to do well no matter what happens, no matter what's thrown at you, no matter the economy, no matter what's happening in the world. I think them traits. And then I think that here's probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I did a survey monkey for 100 business owners and entrepreneurs, and 94% of them never ever knew what the end game was, what the exit was. And I see this as, especially in very small businesses, where people are running businesses themselves, nobody really understands what the end game is. And it's like a GPS, if you like. If you have to tell a GPS where you want to go, and then like the directions, the postcode or whatever, and then it has to check where you're at right now. And then there's a number of directions you've got to do along the way. And I think most people don't do that. They kind of flow along and say, well, I'll make money this week. And I think one of the big things is what's the end game for you? What is success look like for you? What's your purpose? What's your vision, and what's your values? And what I found is most people don't put any time into that. And I think it's, if you really have a direction of where you're heading, and at what point you're going to get out of your business, because we all leave our businesses at one time or another. I think that's one of the key things. But again, I think it's much deeper than that, mate.
But then I also think that a lot of people, they don't own a business, they own a job.
Yeah.
And because they don't know where they're going and don't have any plan with that GPS, that's the reason why they get stuck. They're too focused on just making money for the now instead of building that business and building those systems and processes in that then make life much sweeter, and then make it so that you can spend more time with your kids and do more of the things that you love to do.
Yeah.
So if I was a solopreneur on the beginning of my journey, what you mentioned business link and learning and things, what kind of steps would you advise to take first?
But if you were just starting out in business,
Yeah.
What the advice I would give is to understand why you are going into business.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a firefighter, I was really. I'll tell a little story if I may, Jamie, because I think this will be relevant for people that are coming out of doing that step from employment to self-employment.
Yeah.
When I was a firefighter, Katie was very young, and I was not able to attend everything at school. So I managed to take her on her first day at school and pick her up. I managed at nursery, I managed to do it the first day at school, but some of the things I wasn't available with, and that wasn't. I didn't have a family, so that work would take priority, and I, over the years, and I think very often people don't know the real purpose in business, especially when you're first starting out, and certainly I didn't. I worked on this going through the years on what my real purpose was, but all I knew was I wanted to be so I wanted to do what I wanted, when I wanted, with whom I wanted, not limited by money or time or employment status. Yeah, and most people kind of don't get that. And if, I have this thing now where I say, if I don't need money, would I do this today? And if it's no, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not doing it, no matter how much it is. And so when Jake's 22, we're recording this in January 24, and Jake's 22 in a couple of weeks. And when he was little, I wanted to be in a position where he came home and said, "We've got a school trip, Daddy." And if he's, what we always used to say, okay, there's one parent can go on it. Who do you want to go, Mummy or Daddy? And 9 times out of 10, he'd say Mummy. I'd say brilliant. But the times when he said Daddy, I was going to be there. And that was a big driver for me, being in control of my own destiny. Some people fear it, and it's understandable if you think about how the education system works. They guide us, from education to employment, and that's where the government makes all the taxes, so that's where they want everybody to sit. So they kind of, brainwash us into being employed and getting a good job and going to university and stuff like that. And it's not normal or extraordinary, I call it, if you step out of that and become part of the 1%, if you're brave enough to do that, and your drive is something different than just making a load of money. Because there's a lot of, and I think this is a really key point here. There's a lot of billionaires that are completely depressed, and so you have to find out your why, for what purpose that you're going into self-employment. And if it's spend time with your family, then don't negotiate. Put that first rather than.
Really similar story of what drove me to kind of drive the Best Singing Waiters to where it was. So I was on a gig and Claire sent me some photos, ironically, seeing that I'm talking to you, of Jack at Wigan Fire Station on one of their open days.
Oh.
I'm watching looking at these photos of Jack pretending to hose down and in the fire engine, and I'm at this wonderful wedding gig, really blessed to kind of be at a venue like I was at, but I just felt I'm missing all these moments. And that's really what drove me to then put in more systems and processes and make sure that I was the owner of a business and not an owner of a job. Because like you say, I want to do what I want, where I want, with who I want, whenever I want.
Not limited by money.
Yeah,
And if you think about it, mate, sorry for interrupting, but if you think about it, this is what people do their whole life. They work a minimum of 40 years, doing 40 hours a week, to retire on 40% of what they work for. So the whole goal is to get to that point at the end of their life where they can do what they want, when they want, with whom they want, not limited by money, because you've got money coming in every week, every month. Yep. Right? And what I'm suggesting is that you don't wait till you have retired, you start right now living that life, and then you live life by design, you create your own destiny, and then what you do is you find the things around you to fit your lifestyle, not the other way around. 99% of people go to employment and they fit their family lifestyle around their employment. And for me, that was not an option when I started, and it's more than 2 decades now when I first started on my own. And geez, again, making so many mistakes. Well, they say that experience is an expensive teacher, and that was certainly my lesson. And I know you've had some too, because we've discussed it in the past.
Yeah, so now when I'm scheduling my week, I want to be more productive and get more done in a shorter space of time. So I use my Google Calendar, and I sit down on either Sunday evening or first thing on a Monday morning, and the first thing I schedule in is the kids stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's my gym stuff, because I want to look after my health.
Mm-hmm.
And then work comes in.
Yeah.
Most people will be the other way around and schedule all their work stuff in before they schedule out their family stuff, and then after their family stuff they look after their health and do that. And to me, that's crazy.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that. I've just pulled this off my wall, and I'll share it with you in a second, because I think one of the things that you asked is, what advice should I give? And I talked about it, said it's a really deep subject, but one of the things is your personal values, or the values and a hierarchy of what's important to you. So I know that you know this. Over the years, I've been to different places, Mount Everest, and climbed Mount Kinabalu, and then I did the New York Marathon, London Marathon. On my 54th birthday, I did a half Ironman. And what's happened to me along the way, and for people that are just starting out, don't expect to get this straight away. But I think that what you need to do is you need to align. What you've just demonstrated there, Jamie, is that your values are aligned in what you're doing. So you're measuring your time.
Yeah.
Around what's important to you and why it's important. And most people don't ask themselves them 2 questions often enough. What's important to you and why it's important. So over the years, I've came up with what I've called my 7 F's framework. And this is a hierarchy that I started working on and saying, well, why am I not happy with this? Why am I not happy with that? Because I'm either on or off. I'm a type of human being that I'm on or off. If I'm on something, I'm on it. So if I'm training for a marathon, I'm on it, and nothing gets in the way. If I'm in business, nothing's getting in the way apart from my family. And then I kind of realised when in between events I was putting weight on and not doing very well. What's going on? Until I come up with this. And I think hopefully this will benefit the people that watch this. Hopefully you can see these here.
Yeah. So I'm
so
just going to
number one value.
Oh, you go. You tell the story.
Yeah, number one value, right? So I can't take care of my family, because that's number 2, if I'm not fit and healthy. Yeah. So I've just built a gym in the garage. I'm actually working from above the garage now. And so number 1 for me is fitness, because I've got to be fit and healthy. So I'm 58 years old now. Before my 61st birthday, and this is on air now, so it's out there. My plan is in August of 2026, I'll be doing a full Ironman, not a half Ironman. So for those that are here, and so in my 61st year, before my 61st birthday, my goal is to do a full Ironman. So I've done a half, but a full Ironman, for those that are not aware, a 2.4 mile swim, 112 miles on the bike, and then a marathon after it, which is just, if you've ever done a marathon, can you imagine getting off a bike 112 miles? Then family. So that's the reason why you asked me earlier. I've got Alex and Jake working for me, so we can build assets that are legacy. So what happens when I'm not here? Then frequency. Most people won't understand this, but what that means for me is how my state of mind is. So if you understand brain waves, and there's something called the Hawking scale, which measured vibrations in your body for what mood you're in. So I have to be in a high mental state, a good frame of mind every day. And if I'm not, I can't be fulfilled. I can't be really happy and content. And then notice here, this is what most people will be, why is that down there? Right? Because can I be fit? Can I have a great family life? Can I be in a great state of mind? And can I be really happy without money? Yeah. So that's why it's right down there. Can I be free? Can I do what I want, when I want, with whom I want? No, because I've got bills to pay. And so once I get that bit right, then I can have some freedom, which creates fun in life. And I think that's, hopefully you can see, I see it back to front.
Yeah.
I just pulled it off the wall when you were talking about, because that is for me one of the key things. So if somebody says, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this to make some money? And I'm like, well, hang on a second. Does it fit with these? And if it doesn't, I'm not doing it. That's it. Unless I've got these in alignment.
So looking at the frequency bit, I do quite a lot of meditation and visualization. How do you kind of keep yourself aligned and keeping that frequency vibe high? How do you go about doing that?
Well, some of the seminars that I've done in the past, I teach a framework, what I call STEER. And if you can picture on the right hand side here, is this the right hand side?
It is for me. It might not.
Yeah, so it will be for the people watching.
Yeah.
So if you've got an R there, an R means results, right? So I've done work with Doncaster Rovers, and I currently do work with Premier League footballers and stuff like that. Not very much, because I'm quite busy. But when I go and work with footballers and a football team, I'll say, okay, football's all about results, right? So you can transfer this to business. Being in business is all about results. The results you get mean the quality of life. And they all said, yeah. And I said, but does anybody ever have a bad day? And they say, yeah, I wake up on, get out the wrong side of bed. And I said, and how, what happens then? Well, I don't perform. So would you understand then that your actions and behaviours affect your results? In psychology, you call it cause and effect. So I put an A up, your actions affect your results. Would everybody agree with that? Because I would say, if you're a business owner and you drink excessively till 4 o'clock in the morning and then want to get up at 7, how do you think your results are going to be? They're not great, right? Yeah. So your actions and behaviours affect your results. Now this has developed again over years. And then I was like, well, what affects your actions and behaviours? And it's your emotions. So if you think about it, your emotions, here's one for everybody that's listening to this. Have you ever noticed that before you go on holiday, the week before or even 2 weeks before, you seem to get so much more done than at any other time of the year? Because it's like you're focused on something, and it just seems like everything's effortless. Because your emotions are raised, your energy levels are raised, which means you perform better. Your actions and behaviours, which means you have results. So that's EAR. And then I was like, well, when I first started doing mindset stuff, Jay, I know you know this, but people listening won't. I wanted to test out all these things to see what worked, and so I did a lot of volunteering for people with alcohol and drugs and depression, and I would go and I would look at all the things that were going on inside the head at the time. And what I noticed in 100, and I've been doing this now for over 20 years, in 100% of the people that I've asked this question to, they all say the same thing. If somebody's depressed or feeling low and feeling down on themselves, if they've been depressed for a number of years, I'll say, if you have 100 thoughts in a day, if you have 100 thoughts, how many of them are positive if you're depressed? And in 100% of the occasions, there's never more positive than there is negative. They're all negative thoughts. Sometimes it's 100% negative thoughts. So I started digging down deep into that and saying, well, how does that work? And it turns out that the thoughts that you have create a frequency or a vibration on what's called a scale. So if you're in guilt or shame, you're a very low frequency. So the way that you're thinking affects your energy, your emotion levels. So if you're thinking of gratitude, if you're grateful every single day, just for the little things, you're right above what I call the line. The line is 250 hertz per second. And if your frequency is not above that, if your thoughts are not positive every day, so when people say, you've heard this, Jamie, but certainly over the last 15 years, when people say to me, how are you, Terry? I'll say something like, I'm embarrassingly awesome. And people look at me like, weirdo. But what they don't realise is that I'm training my own brain every day by the thoughts, because I'm raising that thought frequency. And let's talk about, in business, it's very easy to get low and depressed and anxious about things.
Yep.
But all you're doing is you're allowing that frequency to come down. And so it's the thinking that creates the feelings. And this is true in neural networks in your mind. So, for example, dopamine, if you get in, there's a lot of things at the moment around cold water shock therapy. And so if you get in, your body releases a chemical called dopamine, a neurotransmitter. And then you've got serotonin, and what you realise is if you raise your frequency, you raise the chemicals in your brain, because what's depression. People used to say, and they say it's different now, but they used to say it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, but nobody ever went to the root cause. So thoughts create your emotions, emotions create your actions and behaviour. If you're in high frequency, your actions and behaviour create your results. And then over the last couple of years, I was like, but what transforms your thoughts? And I went, that's really interesting. So some days you just have negative thoughts and you don't think about it. And then I recall learning something, and you've kind of done this in training with me, called the chain of excellence, or enter a presenter's. I think you called it, if I may
Tits
say,
and teeth.
Tits and teeth. Right. Yeah,
Well, that's a showbiz thing. When I worked with the first job I got, working with a drag queen, I was his leading man, and it was always about putting your chest forward because of the way that it lifts your energy.
That's right.
And in performing arts, you're always told to smile, no matter how fucked up you've done the choreography, or if you've sung the wrong bit. You smile your way through it, and nobody notices.
Yeah, and most importantly, in the inside world, you feel better.
Yeah.
Because you put yourself in a state of mind of high performance. And so that's so it starts with your state of mind. How do you do that? You do it by breathing in deep, getting into a different frame of mind. Your physiology changes. Yeah? So your physiology changes, your mental state, because you raise your chemical, you raise your frequency, and then what happens is that your results change. So nobody else notices it, but the most important thing is your inside world. You're raising that. So it's a steer. State controls your thoughts, controls your emotions, controls your actions and behaviours, which controls your results. So if you're just focused on results and not the other things, you're not going to have the most amazing life. And as far as I know anyway, we're only here once, so I want to enjoy every single moment while I'm on this planet. So when people say, why are you always smiling? And I played golf on Sunday, and I walked to the golf club, and a couple of people said, how are you? I said, I'm amazing. I woke up breathing, and they look at me like, I woke up breathing. But
Yeah, and everyone else is going, not bad.
Yeah, that's right, not bad. If you think about it, the mind doesn't pick up negations.
Yeah.
So do not think about a bouncing kangaroo. You have to think about it. Do not hear it going boing, boing. You have to think about it. So the mind doesn't pick up the not. So I'm not bad. They're telling people they're bad. So I'm saying I'm amazing. I'm awesome. And people think I am kind of weird, but I live life in a really good state of mind. Not all the time, but a very high percentage of the time, because I'm human. There has to be a up, there has to be a down.
Yeah. So when you look back to your childhood, how did your parents shape your life? Because obviously where you are now to where you were as a child, how's that progressed then?
Well, I think one of the greatest things, I think, is the family unit, Jamie. Family is unbelievable. My dad was he was a coal miner for 46 years, but also he's a lot older than my mum. Well, 9 years older, and he was actually a prisoner of war in the Second World War. He was 48 when I was born, and he spent 5 years in Stalag 9C. And then after the war, things were quite tough. So I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My oldest brother is like 76, nothing was really too much trouble to him, and both him and my mum were really, really hard workers, and they valued openness, honesty and integrity, telling the truth, doing the right things, and that's a lot of my values right now. I always say to people, I have to be open and honest. Open means, like if I'm thinking this is happening, I have to say it and verbalise it. I can't hold it inside. Yeah. And honest, and honest means always doing the right thing. I always say that, I used to say this to Katie, and I think you adopted this. You never get it wrong doing the right thing. You know, and you can't. You never get it wrong doing the right thing. You know, and I think that's true. And so they shaped my own values of what's right and what's wrong, on how to treat people with, you know, courtesy and respect, and how I'd like to be treated back. And as you get through your youth, you don't always act in that way, but the values that are instilled in you in your first 7 or 8 years. So if you're a parent, I think psychologists call this the imprint period, the first 7 years of any child's life. Yeah. And if you're not at home, because you're running a business, you're not influencing the first 7 or 8 years of the child's life for the rest of their life. Because once them values are set, it is possible to change them, but they don't very often change that much, them behaviours that you instill. Because if you think about this, when a child is young, you know, I had a friend of mine called Carlo who spoke 6 or 7 languages, and when I used to work with fast jets, if we had jets coming from Germany or Italy and the pilots weren't great at English, and I was under the aircraft plugged in understanding what the problem was, I used to call Carlo over, put the headset on, and he would speak to me in French and Italian or German, and I thought that was amazing. I said, how did you learn that? He said, learn it. I just grew up in Austria and we spoke all the languages. And so we're sponges as kids, and the sponge just isn't for information. If you think about it, nobody teaches children to speak. They absorb what's going on, and then they start increasing their vocabulary, and it's unconscious. So that, you know, so the first 7 or 8 years of your life, they're picking up everything around them, and if you're not there to influence that, you're missing a massive part of it. And if somebody's watching this now and is working 80 hours a week and saying, I'm doing it for my family, you have to realise right now that you are not. You know, you're not doing it for your family. You're doing it because you think it's best for your family. But actually what's best for your family is then first 7 or 8 years, you being able to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, not limited by money, so you can influence them children for the rest of their life.
And that's, to me, why systems and processes are so damn important, because then you can free up your time, delegate more stuff, and then be that influential parent that you need to be for your kids.
Definitely. So, I just add one thing to it before your next question, Jamie. There, I think you talk about systems and processes. I like to talk about rhythms, and a perfectly repeatable week. Here again, when people are really busy, this is something that I picked up. People are either reactive or proactive. What you're demonstrating is putting systems and processes are what I call rhythms in your business. Yep. So I think that one of the things that small business owners need to do is to really become proactive and put in a perfectly repeatable week. So if you do things at the same time, the same day, the same week, around your family, but it's the same time, because here's what happens in the mind. We've got something like 20 billion bits of information we come into our mind every every single day. It's like incredible. We can't think about everything. And if you're like you're trying to do well, you're always thinking of new ideas and stuff like that. And so what you've got to do is you've got to guard that. And the way in which you do that, something comes into your mind, you write it down, because there's a time in the week when you do that. And I think that's one of the most powerful strategies that new, parentpreneurs, stuff like that, you plan around your family, and then you have dedicated focus at that time. Just in what you were saying there, I think it's so important.
Yeah. So a really easy way to do that is to do what I call a time audit. So you kind of have Monday to Friday, and then every quarter of an hour on that spreadsheet you write down what you're doing, and then if you can see patterns within that, if you've done it for a couple of weeks, that's what then can be put into what you call your rhythms, what I call systems and processes, and that makes business so much easier.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning compartmentalization. So that's like each compartment in your business. So let's talk about what I call MSoft. Every business has, I believe, 5 elements. Marketing, which drives the leads, which goes to sales, so you convert the leads into sales. Operations, that you convert operation, you get people going to weddings or and then there's finance. But the most important element is talent, or the people. So MSoft, marketing drives sales, sales drives operations, so you don't do any work in that until you don't win any sales, and then you have to deliver it. Then you have to get paid for it, and then it's what you do with the team. And if you compartmentalize them 5 things in any business, so if you think, oh, Jamie, I could use some of these videos for my marketing. That goes into the marketing compartment, and then let's say that you do that 90 minutes a day. So if tonight I think, wow, what Jamie said today, I could really do that. Then what you do is you write it down, and then when in your 90 minutes, that's when you work on it. And what most people do is say, oh, I'll work on that, and they wonder why that they're not getting the success that they want or deserve.
Yeah, I call that my Premier League time, because I believe that if you don't dedicate that Premier League time, you can't play Champions League.
That's right.
With the same sort of setup that you would have if you were playing pub football, and that 90 minutes is really, really important. So we were speaking about your kids. So what are the lessons that you've learned over the years from your kids then? What have they taught you?
Oh, wow. I think that they've taught me that they're the greatest gift in life. My framework has changed now. You can sense it, and hopefully people can. They're the most wonderful thing that's happened to me in my life, and every day I cherish the little smiles. Katie's 29 this year now, and when she's a little girl, when Katie was little, I used to watch other people, Jamie, older people. They'd be sat in a cafe, and we'd be feeding her, and they'd be looking and smiling. I used to think, oh, that's nice. And now I do the same when people have got young kids. But what I didn't realise is what they're actually doing is reminiscing all the memories, all the feelings associated with their kids growing up. And so, when your kids are young, you have to, your job, I've said this a lot over the years, but your children are a book. And like Katie's on chapter 9, Jake's on chapter 22 of their book. And I think that over the years, early days, I was expecting them to be on my chapter. So I'm 58 now, so I'm on my 59th chapter. That's how I look at it. And I'm expecting them to behave the same way as I am, and they can't. And so I think what you have to do is your kids help you realise where they are. But the most important thing, I believe, is the memories that are treasured and that you have. Well, once the body starts failing when you're about 140 years old, Jamie, and then sat in a chair, once the body starts failing, all you've got is your memories, and so don't bypass them. And I think that's what they've taught me to enjoy, and that life's not just about making money and making a difference. It's about the family unit and how special that is.
Yeah, making those memories.
Yeah.
So I've been doing my research and listening to some of the podcasts that you've done with other people, and you said that success is an inside job. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I really do believe that there's an outside world and an inside world, and if you're not thinking in the right way, you're 80% not going to be successful. So if we talk about 80%, 100% of business success, I believe, is 80% psychology, i.e. the way in which you think, and 20% strategy, so the things that you do in your business. And if you're not having thinking time every single day about what you're doing, why you're doing it, when you're doing it, and for what purpose you're doing it, you're just going to be floating. If you get in a taxi and say where do you want to go? Say just anywhere, or you'll get there. And so business is a thinking man and woman and person sport. It's not just about what you do. So the people that are really successful get that, and they operate a lot here. Let's just talk about one of the most successful individual investor of all time, Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Right, who started reading finance newspapers at 12 years old. He'd go into work every morning. They call him the Oracle of Omaha, and he'd go into work every morning, and he would in his car, which is he still lives even today in a fairly modest house, and he'd go into work, and how he did yesterday determined whether he would go into McDonald's every morning, and he would have a large meal if he had a really good day the day before, or just a small meal if he didn't on the way to work. Then he'd go into work and he'd get all the newspapers and he'd spend 3 hours reading, just chilling out. And how do you become the most successful investor? And we lost, unfortunately, his business partner Charlie Munger a couple of months ago, and they had, when Charlie died, $160 billion in cash in the bank. Not assets, in the bank, and he would spend most of his day doing nothing. And so if that doesn't tell you that business is a thinking person's sport, then I don't know what is. And that's what I mean by success is an inside job. All the thoughts, all the feelings, all the emotions that you have to be aligned in where you want to go. If they're not, you're just floating. And you know what they say, that only dead fish go with the flow. The smart fish swim up the stream, go against the norm, do all the hard work, so they can spend the rest of their life in calm waters.
Yeah, and what I think you were alluding to a little bit is also about how important goal setting and planning is as well. So that with what we teach, you've kind of got your 3-year vision, then you break it down into a 1-year vision, then 90 days, then into month, and then into your week. And that's kind of what leads into my schedule, so that I know what the GPS is, and then I can put my thinking little bits there and do my little bits of learning and just have space to think sometimes, isn't it? It's sometimes as human beings we're all in too much of a rush to be doing things all the time. We've got to be busy. And social media's probably played one of the bad things about social media is we're always kind of doing stuff with our hands rather than just chilling out and being bored sometimes and just thinking.
Yeah, if you've got alerts on your phone, it's going to have an effect on your success. That's 100%. Years ago now, I turned all the alerts off. So I think it's one of the smartest things that people can do, and spend time reading rather than flicking through TikTok or whatever. If you just adopt that habit every day, I think that'll be incredibly important. And interestingly, a few years ago, 7 years ago, I started buying and investing in businesses, and that's the exact same thing that we do with them all. We get our mission, our values, our marketing niche, and then we will put into rhythms. We'll have 2 days every year where we focus on the next 12 months. We'll also look at the 10-year, the long-term goal for 5 or 3 years, and then the immediate 12 months. And every quarter we review that with 1 day every quarter, and then the 90 days. And then the 90 days go into weekly to-dos, and every to-do that we do is either done or not done, and we have meetings that start on the same time, and it starts on the same time, so that means you have to be in there 10 minutes before, and it finishes on time, and that I cannot emphasize enough. It's great that you do that and what you teach that, because that actually works in working for yourself as a solo parentpreneur, or whether you've got a team of 200, 300, 400 people. I had 88 scaffolders once, and a small management team that led every behaviour on them through that system in one business that we bought, and it works in any business. If you say it don't work for me, then you're missing a trick, 100%.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to put it in place in the early days as well, as a solopreneur, so that then if you want to scale, because not everybody does want to scale, some people are quite happy kind of being that solopreneur, but if you want to scale, you've then got the opportunity to bring people in, delegate, create a bit more time and space for yourself.
Yeah, I think that the really important thing about what you just said there is people say, what's your why? What's your why? What's your purpose? When we're kids are taught that when you say why, you very often from your parents don't get an answer. But why, Daddy? Well, because. Why, Daddy? Just because. Just because. That's it, because I get fed up for answering it. Yeah. But I always found that if you ask for what purpose, your mind goes into a different place. For what purpose are you in business for yourself? And if you can write down what you'll find is a series of values, like I shared earlier. For what purpose? Well, for me, it was like control my own time, control exactly where I am, when I am, and I think that's what everybody's after. And I think it's interesting. No matter what business owner, at what level you are, whether you work for yourself on your own or whether you've got a team of people, I believe that human beings, and I say I'm more than 2 decades into this now, human beings are just after one thing. They're after because you say, like, why are you in business? I want to make £1 million. Okay, but why? Or for what purpose? So I can do this, this and this. And there's a bit about recognition from other people, for some people. If you're honest with yourself, it's most people. But the important thing is that what we talked about earlier, the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, not limited by money. But as you're going on that journey, every single person is after what I call a better quality of life. So even if you're working as a job, you want to get promoted so that you can have a better quality of life, so you can have a better car, a better holiday, stuff like that. And I think that determines what your purpose is for setting up the business. Might be time, and that if you do that, and you don't make a lot of money, but you're happy and you love that, you're successful. And that's, again, you're successful. If you want to sell your business for £10 million, then you do that. You're successful, but it's not success if you're miserable and depressed because of all the time that you've spent in it. It's about my purpose is to live life, what I call back to front, on purpose, doing every single day what I want, when I want, with whom I want, not limited by money. And so if it fits around that, then that fits well for me. I'm happy, I'm fitting all my values into that, if that happens.
Yeah, for me it's about creating those moments with the family so that then when they're at school I can fit my work in there, and when they're out of school I can go and do their activities, spend time waiting around for dance lessons to finish and waiting for football practice to finish or taking swimming lessons, and just being able to do those things with the kids. That to me is much more important than being able to do
and mate, there'll be
gigs a year or something.
Yeah, there'll be people watching this, I'm sure, that are saying, "Oh, that's okay for you," or it's okay for you to say things like that, but I have to work. I'm here to tell you that is just nonsense. If you're in that kind of mindset, that's exactly what I'm talking about the inside game, being successful. And if you can't eat, I get it, but you just focus on times around what the real purpose is. And a story, my dad was 48 when I was born, my mum was 39. And once a year he used to play football with me. Once a year when we're on holiday, and typically we've got Great Yarmouth on our holidays when I was growing up. And I used to look forward to that. And as I grew up, I thought, I really look forward, that's the time he used to spend with me. And then I realised that that's what he did with the other 4 boys as well. The other 3 boys, so the 4 of us. And I started to think of all the things that I got for Christmas as a kid, and I couldn't remember maybe half a dozen things that I got in all my life when I was getting presents from my mum and dad. Half a dozen things, but the things I really remember are the time that my dad and my mum spent with me and the people around me spent with me. I remember the experiences. I don't remember the things, and we make this excuse in our lives where we have to work really hard to give the things, we give the kids the best Christmas, to have a better lifestyle, but actually all they really need is our time, our attention, our frequency, the experiences being built. And we spent summers away. I booked the whole summer off because I was designing my own life, and we'd go away and tour France and Spain, and even if it's intense and you haven't got a lot of money, but it's about creating the memories. And I think that most people, especially when things are tough for small business owners, parentpreneurs, solopreneurs, things like that, you kind of don't think in that way, but you have to do the hard work inside your head that makes the rest of it easy.
Exactly, it's blocking out that time to think, because success leaves clues. So if other people are doing it, there must be a way of working out for you to do it. And sometimes people will be like, well, it's okay that you finish every day at 3:30. I can't do that. Well, finish one day at 3 o'clock, and just gently ease it in, so that then it forces you then to think of better systems and processes that mean that you can manage it. Going back to the holidays, one of the best holidays I ever had was when I was my 40th birthday. We spent 3 weeks in Florida, and a friend of ours, Andy Gibney, said to me at the time that you should do that again next year, but you don't need to go to Florida. Just go on a caravan holiday to Cornwall, because it's not the things that you did in Florida, it's the time you spent with your kids doing that. And now every summer we've got a caravan that we've got up on the Fylde coast, and I work from the caravan on the Fylde coast. The whole 6 weeks we spend the summer up there, and it's a favourite time of year anyway, because I love the hotter weather. But those memories that we make together, just going Blackpool and around into the parks and things, it's magic.
Honestly, the again, if we're all right for time, Jay, I'll tell you a little story. But when Jake was about 3 or 4, so Kate would be about 10, 11, 12, something like that. I was one of them guys that said, I'm not having a caravan. It's complete nonsense. I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. If we're going on holiday, we're going to go somewhere and we're going to spend some money and all that sort of stuff. And Nikki said, well, do you mind if, while you're working, because I was always busy, the kids are busy. And I can't do that. I can't take time off work. And she said, well, do you mind if I have my dad's caravan and go to Clumber Park in Sherwood Forest? There's a caravan park site there. And I said, yeah, of course. And she said, well, you could come out after work. And you only allowed, like if you're on the campsite, you could take the car in. So I used to drive after work, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the summer, and I'd sit outside and I'd watch my wife and Katie and Jake running around having games, and the smiles and the laughter in their face. And I did this for 3 or 4 days on the trot, sat for maybe half an hour watching them. And I had this little moment inside where it was like, where I swore at myself, and I was like, Terry, you completely idiot. What you're doing is allowing what's going on in your head to prevent your kids from having an amazing time. And that very year I went and bought a caravan, and it's one of the greatest gifts for times that you can ever have for your family. And it doesn't need to be a caravan or an expensive one. You can do it in a tent, you can do these things really cost effectively, but the quality time that you have with your kids. I never had a telly in the caravan. It was always, we'll play games and we'd do stuff. And I remember some friends came to visit, and Jake was probably about 13 then, and I was grilling on the barbecue, and Jake rang me on the phone, and I pick up the phone and I was like, hey son, you alright? And I'm grilling some burgers and steaks and stuff, and I'm having some fun, and he says, Dad, I need you. And I was like, what do you mean you need me? We're losing at football, I need you. Come now. And I was like, okay son, I'll be there in a minute. And a friend of mine, Mark, I said, in fact, Mark, the personal trainer, I said, Mark, carry on this barbecue, I'm going to play football. He's like, what are you on about? We're having a beer and stuff like that. I was like, no, Jake needs me. So I went off and played football, and when I came back, and there's a little kind of thing of what's important, and that all came from caravanning and them quality memories. The kids always talk about them now. They never talk about what we bought, what they had for Christmas. And as a parent, I always found I didn't think I could do enough when the kids were young and buy them enough stuff that they wanted. And it used to drain me a little bit. But as an older person now, I realised it was never about what they got. It was about their experiences, and I never even thought about that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can tell you for nothing, there's no way my Jack would be ringing me going, Dad, I need your help on a football pitch, because the amount of times he megs me now, it's embarrassing. So we're getting towards the end of this show. I just want to ask you a few quick questions, if I may. So what are the key 3 behaviours you would like to install in people? If you could kind of wave a magic wand, what are the 3 behaviours that are a must for you?
3 behaviours that are a must. I think that a continual learning. I think that has to be one of them. If we're talking about helping people to get more out of what they want in life and less of what they don't want, I think you have to be continually learning. You have to have the ability to never quit. And I think that you've always got to operate on your own values, on your own gut instinct, because it's never wrong. I think that's probably number one. You know, because there's a lot of stuff in the outside world people want to tell you to do, or should I be doing this? But if you go inside and you operate at your gut, or what I call your unconscious mind, you know, it's never wrong. I've never found it wrong yet. And so always go inside and trust that. I think that's probably...
My key about trusting your gut is always about staff, because you'll be there and you'll have that niggly little feeling in your belly, and kind of like, you want to be a nice human, you want to give them all the opportunities to kind of be the best version of themselves, and it never happens, and kind of 3, 6, even 12 months later it bites you on the butt and you have to get rid. You need to trust your gut more, especially with staff. Yeah. So what was the first record you ever bought?
Stranglers, No More Heroes.
Nice. What's the most memorable place you've ever visited?
Do you know, Nikki and I have just had 3 weeks tour in Thailand.
Oh, nice.
We went through all the islands in December, and we visited some amazing places. But the most special memories, I think, have been created in Scotland when we did a tour. So I think Scotland's one of my favourite places on the planet.
Cool.
We go all the time now to Lanzarote. So we visit a place called Club La Santa. We've got a little timeshare. It is quite cost effective, but again, it's around that fitness and family and all them alignments. Yeah, so I think Scotland's.
What are your top 3 books that you can recommend for people? Because you talked a lot about reading and learning.
Yeah, but it depends where they are in the journey. Really, I think that Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich is a complete classic that I revisit all the time. I think Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, is a really good one for people early on in the journey, understanding that it's actually, if you go up that area where I was talking about earlier, you get to investor, they invest in assets, and assets buy your time back. I think that's a really good kind of distinction in there. And then, third favourite book. I think it'd have to be one from the likes of Tony Robbins, like Unleash the Power Within or something like that, I think, most likely.
Excellent stuff. So one final thing, where can people find you, Terry, if they want to find out more about what you do?
So I haven't been very active on social media I went away and I started investing and buying businesses, so I've not been very active, but by the time this gets out, there should be a new website up at terrygormley.com, or if you search on social media, on most of them I've got there, and that you'll find me under Terry Gormley, or and stuff like that. If you just search for me there, you'll find me there if you want.
Excellent.
Please connect.
Yeah, well, Terry, I can't thank you enough for joining me on my first ever podcast. So hopefully it's been a painless experience. Can't thank you enough. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the one and only, the Big G, Mr. Terry Gormley.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you.
Cheers, Terry.
Cheers, mate.